Hello, and welcome back to the Gluten Free RN podcast. I'm Nadine RN, BSN, CEN, and today during episode 51, we're going to talk about nutrient-dense, gluten-free foods, and we're going to touch on supplements also. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back to the Gluten Free RN podcast. Welcome to all new listeners, and thanks to everyone else worldwide that has been listening to the Gluten Free RN podcast right along. I'm Nadine RN. I'm a registered nurse. I also have my bachelor's in science in nursing, and I'm a certified emergency room nurse. That's what I did for 17 years for the first part of my career. And now I have 3 nursing businesses. One is RN on call, so I manage people's healthcare, and I'm a healthcare advocate. The second is the Gluten Free RN, and I lecture and author books, do a podcast, obviously, and provide family and individual consultations for newly diagnosed celiac patients and people that really just need very solid information based on their health. I also own Celiac Nurse Consulting, and that basically focuses on corporations and hospitals that need to be ADA compliant with people that are celiac disease and be aware really of what celiac disease is and what it means to their patients or their employees so that they can provide the best workplace and also patients, if it's a hospital, provide them with safe, nutritious foods so they can heal and get better and ultimately get out of the hospital healthier than they actually went in. So today we're going to talk about nutrient-dense, gluten-free foods, and we're going to touch on supplements. Because when people get diagnosed with celiac disease or they find out they're non-celiac gluten sensitive, they need to really work on their gut health. And what that means is they need to allow the villi to regenerate or to grow back after the villus atrophy. They need to deal with the fact that their intestines are inflamed. And if their intestines are inflamed, typically most of their body is inflamed also. So people will end up with any itis, inflammation issues, and all types of things that need to be healed up. Because we all know that inflammation is the basis for so many diseases, and we need to make sure that that inflammation is dealt with. We also need to make sure that we're healing the immune system. I see more and more people every day that have a damaged immune system, and we really need to work on that immune system to get it back functioning appropriately and very effectively. So how do we do that? Well, actually, we do it with nutrient-dense foods if at all possible. What that means is stay away from that gluten-free junk food. Think twice about replacing your gluten-containing foods with gluten-free products that are nutrient deficient or really don't provide any or very few nutrients. You want to stay away from the junk food that is junk food, that is low in nutrients, high in calories, potentially has hidden gluten, and is expensive. And that is one of the number one complaints that I hear from people, that being on a gluten-free diet or finding out you have celiac disease, your grocery bill goes through the roof because you're replacing a lot of the gluten-containing foods with these products that are essentially gluten-free junk foods because they're low in nutrients and high in calories and sugar and all those ingredients that make those gluten-free products taste better. More and more, I'm also becoming aware of the fact that a lot of these gluten-free products are manufactured in facilities that also process wheat or barley or other grains. So there's a good chance that they are actually contaminated or cross-contaminated with gluten. And unfortunately for all of us, that means that a lot of the products that are even certified gluten-free are potentially contaminated. It makes it tricky. So ideally, it wouldn't be this tricky, but it is, and I can't help that. I really wish I could. But the idea is if we are focusing on whole foods from our grocery stores that are organic, or we're going to the farmers markets where the farmers are producing really good, healthy food in good soil and it's organic and very few fertilizers, if any, are used, that food is going to be much more nutrient dense. And additionally, a lot of the food that is shelf stable and highly processed is also irradiated. They started doing that in 1963 so that the products themselves would be shelf stable. So what that means is the food is essentially dead and it doesn't have any live probiotics or anything that's really good for you. So the more you can focus on eating food that's alive and has deep, dark, rich color, such as fruits and vegetables, meats and fish and eggs, nuts and seeds, the better off you're going to be. So processed foods potentially does have hidden gluten. And so if there's any doubt about how the food was processed or how it was manufactured, then go without. There's a little saying that says, when in doubt, go without. Just avoid it because it's not worth being sick for, especially food that is expensive and nutrient deficient and potentially cross-contaminated. What we know is that we cannot control what manufacturers put in their products. When a product line is owned by a family or an individual, and you can call them up and you can say, hey, what's in this product? Or have things changed? And that person is accountable to that product and the ingredients, then I say, I'm more likely to buy that product. But once a company gets bought by a corporation, that individual or that person that sold the company has no idea how that corporation is going to change that product. So at that point, I tend to not buy products anymore that have been sold to corporations for that very reason, because I have no idea what the standards are of that corporation, and there's no one to call up on the phone that is accountable. So the nice thing is that we all think of food in a food type pyramid. That's the way we've been taught to think about food. But if you can make your food pyramid look a little different, you're going to get healthier faster. And that is the goal. I really wish I would have had this information from the get-go when I got diagnosed with celiac disease, but there was no one like me, or there were no healthcare providers that were actually educated about celiac disease. So I had to find this all out by myself. So the benefit for you is I get to give you all this great information that took me years to find out. And we have lots more resources at this point. We have the entire paleo community. We have lots of online nutritionists and dietitians that are extremely good, RDs, at the paleo type diet or a very nutritious whole food diet. So the pyramid, number one, as I was taught it as a child, is totally erroneous. We should not be getting the vast majority of our calories from grains. If you think of fruits and vegetables as the basis of your pyramid, followed by meat and fish and eggs, hopefully from organic, grass-fed, or wild, pasture-raised animals, obviously really good quality meat and fish and eggs. I'm so lucky and I am incredibly thankful for the local farmers in Corvallis and Salem and Portland, Oregon, where, some farms are completely gluten-free. We have a family that owns a farm called Midway Farms between Corvallis and Albany on Highway 20, and all of their produce and their animals, everything is gluten-free. And you might say, well, why does that matter? Well, it absolutely matters what's in the soil. I'm going to interview Cynthia at some point, and she's the owner of that farm, and we're going to talk about the importance of the soil and how to get nutrient-dense foods and why her foods actually taste better. And then, of course, the nuts and berries. We in Oregon, again, are very lucky. We have blackberries that grow everywhere. They're wild, and so that's free food. But we also have hazelnuts and walnuts from organic farms, and that's really, really good food. Now, I know a lot of people panic when you start taking entire food groups out of the pyramid or out of people's diets. The reality is that the grains are pretty nutrient deficient. And if you look at your grain products, most of them are fortified. What that means is that supplements are actually added, or nutrients are actually added to the product way down in the process. So it's not that the grains actually are inherently nutritious. No, those grains or those grain products actually have supplements added to them. Isn't that interesting? So the more you can focus on a paleo type pyramid where fruits and vegetables, and mainly vegetables, are on the bottom, and then we have meats and fish and eggs, and then nuts and berries on the top to round it all out. Hopefully, again, local and organic everything as much as possible. And if that's not possible, just source the best food that you have available to you. Trust me, you will get better faster. And this is very important for your gut health. And for all of you that are, as I like to call it, fat phobic, it's essential that you have healthy fats in your good diet so that you can obtain good health. Why is fat important? It's so important for you to heal your intestines, be able to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K, fix those deficiencies, and make sure that you're getting a good varied selection of healthy good fats. And what are healthy good fats? Things like avocados, olive oil, minimally processed and hopefully organic, bacon fat, so lard, tallow, which is beef fat rendered. Oh, and of course, coconut oil. Coconut oil is so good for so many things, and we'll go over that in a little bit. And making sure that you have an appropriate ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. The benefits of good fats and oils are that your brain and your brain cells, which are, by the way, fat, are healthy and well-nourished. It's extremely important that your nervous system is healthy. Otherwise, if you have celiac disease, there's a good chance you could end up with another autoimmune disease that actually attacks your nervous system, such as MS or ALS or Parkinson's. So it's a really good idea to feed your nervous system really good nutrient-dense foods and really high-quality fats, because nobody wants to have their nerves get demyelinated. And the good news is that if that does happen, there's a good chance we can potentially remyelinate some of those nerves and regenerate some of those nerves. In the past, we used to tell people that once that damage was done, there's nothing we could do. But there's lots of evidence that that's not true, that there's some remyelination that can occur. People can regain their nervous system health. Fat-soluble vitamins are essential for our lungs and our eyes, our connective tissue, our hair, our nails, and supergood fats are very essential for digestion in our organs, our immune system, and also our hormones. If we do not have enough cholesterol in our body, then our hormones are going to get all wacky, and we see that every day. So it's extremely important for women especially to be on a supergood high-fat diet for all of your hormonal reasons, and also for men too. I mean, I'm not going to leave them out for their hormones, but for women especially, it's extremely important hormonally that we have super good high fat. Sweet potatoes are extremely nutrient dense. They're high in beta carotene, which is very important and essential for the manufacture of vitamin A, also for vitamin C and B6. It's high in manganese and copper. It's a great source of dietary fiber. Sweet potatoes also are high in potassium and iron, and amino acids and fatty acids. The benefits of eating sweet potatoes over white potatoes are they're antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory, not pro-inflammatory. They are low glycemic index, which means they help regulate your blood sugar better. And there's lots of really good benefits of eating sweet potatoes and yams over white potatoes. White potatoes are actually high glycemic index. They are a part of the nightshade family, so they're pro-inflammatory, especially for people with migraines. People with migraines really should think about switching over from white potatoes to sweet potatoes and yams, because removing that nightshade family from their diet, what we're finding is a lot of the migraine sufferers, which again begin in the intestines, those intestinal migraines migrate up to the brain and cause inflammation. So if we can remove a nightshade family from a person's diet and they don't have migraines anymore, there's a huge benefit. The nice thing about sweet potatoes is you can use them for everything that you use white potatoes for. And you want to eat the skin, just scrub it up, and maybe not too much depending on where you get them from. The sweet potatoes are digested slower than a white potato, and you don't get that big sugar rush from a sweet potato. Even though the name suggests that it is sweeter than a white potato, it's digested, and that sugar that is in the sweet potatoes won't kick up the blood sugar in such a crazy spike. You can also make sweet potato fries. You can put your sweet potatoes in your zoodler and put them in a pan in the oven with some really good quality olive oil and salt and pepper, or whatever you want to season them with. And you have a really excellent nutrient-dense snack or a side dish. Don't forget your leafy greens. Your leafy greens are nutritional powerhouses. There's one caveat here. If your body produces oxalate, if you have kidney stones that are calcium oxalate, you really need to be on a low oxalate diet until we get everything regulated, and maybe that's not an issue for you anymore. But there are certain people that produce a fair amount of oxalates, and those oxalates come from these leafy greens. So leafy greens are nutritional powerhouses, and they will definitely help you heal on every level. They're full of phytonutrients and iron and calcium, vitamins K, C, E, A, and B. So they're full of nutrients. Things like kale and spinach, collard greens, bok choy, seaweed, and Swiss chard. Those are all things that are extremely good for your health and your brain health. They have benefits in preventing osteoporosis. They're anti-inflammatory. These leafy greens are really good for your heart health and aid in digestion because they're high in fiber. They do have a lot of water, but they're really good things to eat and include in your diet every day. Kale is really hardy, so you can plant it in the summer and it can winter over if you have the opportunity of having a garden. Collard greens are also very hardy. And I used to be afraid of collard greens because they're kind of a hardy, leafy green. One of my favorite ways to use them is to make sandwich wrap type things where I put in the tuna fish or the chicken salad, whatever I'm making, wrap it in collard greens. And it's a crunchy, easy way to make a really nice wrap type meal for lunch or breakfast or whatever it is that I need, and very nutrient dense. Berries I mentioned are extremely healthy for you. And, if you go out and pick them, they're not expensive. You have a good idea where they come from. And if they're not sprayed, then they're organic. And if you can really just focus on as many berries a day as possible, blueberries are fabulous. Goji berries, my favorite are cranberries. I used to love cranberry juice, but definitely sweetened. Now I can drink cranberry juice and eat cranberries with very little sugar. I prefer that more bitter taste. I love the tartness of cranberries. They're amazing. Strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and these are easy things to put into a smoothie, but you still get all the benefit of the nutrient-dense berries and all the many phytonutrients, the vitamins C and K, fiber and manganese. The benefits are the berries will support your immune system. There's heart benefits, so cardiovascularly. It's anti-inflammatory, so the more berries you eat, the less inflammation you're going to have, and can help with things like bladder infections. We all know that cranberry juice or cranberries themselves can actually change the pH of the urine and help kill off bacteria in the bladder, which is always a good idea. So a lot of people don't have urinary tract infections once they go on a super good nutrient-dense, gluten-free diet or a paleo-type diet. Those bladder infections go away because we get our immune system back. So those berries, focus on them because they are more than just pretty colors. They certainly will make our food very colorful, which is great. And again, we want to focus on foods that are really deep, dark, rich colors because those foods are going to be much more nutrient dense. Coconut. I used to think coconut was just those candy bars, and I didn't like them. I didn't like coconut. Now I cannot get enough of real, natural, super good coconut. If I'm on a trip, many of you that follow me on Instagram know that coconut water helped really sustain me while I was in India and Thailand. There were coconuts everywhere, and I would dig out the meat after I had drank the water out of the coconut, so coconut water. So coconut is a good source of coconut milk and water. When I talk to people in my classes, I mention that I want them all to have coconut water in their cupboard, especially on their shelves, whether they like coconut water or not. I don't really care. Coconut water is food, and if you develop nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, anything that's going to change your electrolytes, coconut water will potentially keep you out of the hospital. It's high in potassium and micronutrients, so it's very good at replacing your electrolytes if you end up with an electrolyte imbalance because of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Coconut is also a great source of coconut oil and coconut flour. You can shred it. You have the fresh meat if you can get the fresh coconuts at the store. They're hard to get into, so you have to practice that a little bit. But it is possible, and they're so worth it. Or you can get everything that is minimally processed for the coconut. And when I say minimally processed, I mean no other ingredients have been added. And the coconut has been processed in a facility that hopefully only processes coconuts. And believe me, if you come to my house, you'll see that I have every possible coconut product in my house because they're so nutrient dense. They're a great source of fiber and fat, lauric acid and protein, calcium and iron, magnesium and zinc, phosphorus and folate, potassium, niacin, vitamins C and B. They're so nutrient dense, I cannot begin to tell you how useful coconuts are as far as keeping people alive. And really, if I had to choose a few things that I would have in a pack that I would carry around in a disaster, an emergency, or while I was traveling and I really didn't have anything else to eat, I would always want to have coconut oil in that pack because it is so nutrient dense and it is a great source of fat. Coconuts are really good for our heart and our blood pressure. Coconuts support our immune system, absorption and digestion, are great for our bones and our teeth. Some people even do oil pulling with coconut oil, and that is very beneficial to our oral health or your mouth and your teeth. Coconuts are great for cholesterol, sore throats, skin problems. It's one of those multi-purpose foods that I always include on any handouts I give as a multi-purpose food because you can put it on your skin, you can put it in your coffee, you can do so many different things with the coconut oil and the coconut products. It's extremely good for your entire body. So if you see anything that says that coconuts are bad for you, really question that information. The next one is unsulfured black molasses. It is a sugar, and it is a processed sugar, but black molasses is extremely nutrient dense. It's amazing. Do make sure it's organic, but it also contains some extremely important micronutrients, such as manganese and copper, calcium and magnesium, potassium and iron, vitamin B6 and selenium, and chromium. Some of the benefits of blackstrap molasses are it's been known to reverse gray hair or white hair. It's a quick source of energy. It helps with arthritis and anemia because of that iron in there, heart and muscle health, brain and bone health. And I know that if I get a bottle of blackstrap molasses that's organic, my body needs something. So if I'm paying attention to that molasses, my body knows that it's a good source of these nutrients and I must be deficient or my body must need something. So I'll just take a tablespoon or 2 or 3 every day until I'm really just not paying attention to that bottle of blackstrap molasses anymore. I pay attention to my body. I listen now. My body is a great source of all types of great information if I pay attention to it. If I don't pay attention to it, things happen. Avocados have twice as much potassium as a banana. So really focus on avocados because they're a great source of glutathione and omega-3s, potassium, protein, a whole list of vitamins. And they're extremely good. I try to eat at least 1 avocado every day. There are over 500 varieties of avocados, so do make sure you're mixing it up. It is the highest protein of any fruit, and an avocado is a fruit. So make sure that you're getting avocado every day if you can, especially when it's in season. And if you live in a place where avocados grow on the tree, you are so lucky. Pumpkin seeds are another one of those most perfect foods and very nutrient dense. So pumpkin seeds can be made into pumpkin seed butter. They can be eaten raw. You can roast them. Even just 2 seeds every day can elevate your iron levels. So people that have anemia, pumpkin seeds can help with that. They are extremely nutrient dense, and there is a company that does make a really great pumpkin seed butter. And I always make sure that I have 3 or 4 of those jars of pumpkin seed butter because they're so nutrient dense. It's a part of my emergency preparedness kit. Chia seeds have 5 times more calcium than milk. So if you can get some chia seeds, they're great, full of fiber and calcium. You can use these if you have diarrhea, and they will slow down that whole process because they absorb 10 times their weight in water. They do become a gel type substance in your stomach, or they're mucinogenic. So I don't recommend that people eat chia seeds every day. There is an issue with that mucilin that the chia seeds can produce, or any seed. Flax seeds do the same. You can just sprinkle them on your food as a whole seed. And try not to get too many of them because they can cause constipation if you're eating the whole seed and they're absorbing 10 times their weight in water. So they're very effective. It's just that you have to be very careful when you're eating them or using them. They will reduce cravings. They're good for blood pressure, diabetes, and cancer, hydration. They slow down aging process, and dementia, depression, and diarrhea. So they're very nutrient dense. We're going to talk about protein and meat, and I don't talk a lot about beans or legumes because they are pro-inflammatory and they have chemicals in them that are pro-inflammatory, such as lectins and phytates. So those are chemicals we are trying to avoid. So the more we can get protein from really good quality meat, and trust me, I understand the difference between meat that's been ethically and humanely raised on a grass-fed farm with no antibiotics or hormones versus meat that's been raised in a food lot. I totally get that. That's why I know my farmers and I know where my meat and my fish and my eggs come from. Meat is extremely dense in the protein and iron, zinc and magnesium, vitamins E and B, fat and amino acids. The benefits are lengthy. Meats are great for our immune system, lungs, and brain, obviously, eyes, teeth, skin, and bones. So our entire bodies benefit from the amino acids that come from meat. There are some myths about red meat. There's myths about eating meat, period, that are just not true. So really, we need to get educated about why eating meat is much better for us than the legumes, which are the beans or peanuts. If you choose to be vegan or vegetarian, that's fine. Try to eat as many nutrient-dense foods that are not pro-inflammatory. And if you're just not getting better, or if you're getting sicker, sometimes people have to go back to eating at least some form of meat or fish or eggs for that benefit of the protein. Eggs are extremely nutrient-dense, and you want to make sure that you get high-quality eggs. When I first started teaching classes, I would always crack open a standard grocery store egg and an egg that was from a local farmer. And the difference in the color and the consistency and the smell of those eggs was enormous. So do make sure that you're getting a super good, high quality egg if you can eat eggs, because eggs can be one of those foods that is also a cross-reactant for people that are newly diagnosed celiac especially. So when I did start going on a paleo diet about 6 or 7 years ago now, for breakfast every morning, I would have a pound of bacon, 4 to 6 eggs, and 2 to 3 avocados. And I'm not kidding. I would have a super good high-fat diet. But at the end of the year of doing that, my cholesterol level was completely within normal limits. My lipid panel looked beautiful. And all my other nutrient panels were within a very healthy range, where before they had been low. So before, when I was just on a gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free diet, I was still struggling. I didn't know that. My body was struggling. I was running marathons and thought I was perfectly healthy. But the reality is I really had to clean up my diet and pay attention to the quality of the food I was eating before my body could heal. There are some really wonderful teas out there, and they're so easy to prepare. Licorice root tea really helps heal the intestines. It combats diarrhea. So it can combat diarrhea, helps with headaches, will help with hydration, which means you can absorb the water in the tea better, helps with sore throats, fights viruses. Peppermint tea will help with stomach cramps, constipation, gallstone problems, immune system. Peppermint tea also helps with relaxation and muscle pain. Cinnamon is extremely nutrient dense in the fact that half a teaspoon a day can lower your LDL cholesterol. And interestingly enough, when I was in Thailand, one of the guides that took me on a hike showed me exactly where cinnamon comes from, and it's from the bark of a tree. And he gave me a chunk of it, and I got to chew it, and it was fabulous. So much better than any of the cinnamon that I've ever had. And here's a chunk of cinnamon that's right off the tree, right from the jungle, and it was incredible. I saved a piece as one of my fondest souvenirs from that trip to Thailand. It was amazing. But cinnamon can be helpful for weight loss, diabetes, cholesterol, anti-inflammatory. It's an antifungal, antibacteria, helps with yeast infections, pain, memory and brain function, digestion, gas, bloating, and diarrhea. So there's really a lot of benefit from getting some cinnamon at least every day, especially while your body is healing. Remember, you are what you eat. So pick good things. I see it all the time. I see people in really fancy cars going through the drive-thrus of fast food restaurants. And I think, they don't put cheap gas in those very expensive cars, but they're willing to spend just a few dollars to feed their body, which long term, your body lasts much longer than any car you're ever going to have. And you want your body to be as healthy as possible. So why would you put food that is nutrient deficient or potentially going to make you sick into your body? So unfortunately, some people take better care of their cars than they do their bodies. I would really love to see that change. The more you can get some really good food in your body, the faster you're going to heal and the more completely you're going to heal. So focus on things like apples and asparagus, bananas, beets, cantaloupe, cranberries, carrots, eggplant, ginger. Ooh, I love ginger. Grapefruit, kiwis, mushrooms, onions, and tomatoes. Now, there's things in there that everybody might have to avoid for a period of time, but overall, just try to expand what you've been eating over time. Expand your vegetable repertoire. Learn how to cook new things at least once a week. Pick up a vegetable that you have never paid attention to before and learn how to prepare it or add it into whatever you're cooking. For those of us that need additional vitamins and supplements when we got diagnosed with celiac disease, because we were so malnourished, had so many deficiencies that our body just needed those vitamins and minerals to heal. So find a good quality multivitamin. Also find fish oil. Some of the keys with fish oil is to get it fresh. So order it from Nordic Naturals or some high quality fish oil. Put it in the freezer. Put those capsules in the freezer and they will stay fresher. And then when you take them, they're less likely to cause that fish oil burp that so many people complain about. Prebiotics and probiotics, and vitamin D. I live in Oregon, so everybody should be on at least 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day to make sure that they're maintaining their vitamin D level, because it should be between 60 and 100. And most people have a critically low vitamin D level and they don't even know it. But it does affect our mood and our nervous system. It affects every organ in our body. So we really need to be paying attention to what our vitamin D level is and supplement appropriately for whatever your vitamin D level is at this time and maintain it. So there's liquids and chewables and capsules for any of these vitamins. And I do recommend, if at all possible, to take a liquid multivitamin and a liquid vitamin D3. And anything in a liquid form is going to be easier for our bodies to absorb and have bioavailable as our intestines are healing. Chewables are great, and capsules are also okay as long as our stomach acid is at the correct pH and can actually break open those capsules. Then the capsules are fine. I do not recommend that people take any tablet at this point because most people with celiac disease or people that have stomach acid or hypochlorhydria or achlorhydria are unable to break down those capsules, and they come out the other end fully intact and go down the toilet, so they're useless. Do make sure that if you are taking a supplement or vitamin that they're always gluten-free. I see many vitamins and minerals that are labeled gluten-free, but in fact, they're not. So work with your health food store personnel and make sure that you're getting vitamins that are certified gluten-free, if at all possible. So Country Life vitamins, Blue Bonnet vitamins, and there's several really high-quality vitamins that you can get from your practitioner, such as from a company called Pure. Those are very good, high-quality vitamins and minerals, but work with your practitioners to find out what you actually need. Avoid hidden gluten at all costs. So don't get your food from the bulk food bins. The cross-contamination there is notorious for causing people to not be able to heal, or that's when we have to really find out where people are still getting gluten. It's because they're getting their food or some of their products from the bulk bins. Again, the cross-contamination issue is enormous. Be aware of other sources of cross-contamination or contamination. Always wash your produce. Be aware of where your teas come from, or grow your own, because the goal is to always be as healthy as possible and to help our bodies heal as quickly as possible. But realize that this whole process does take time. So we want to make sure that our bodies have as many of the nutrients available from nutrient-dense foods. And then if we do need to supplement with high-quality vitamins and minerals, that we are aware of how to access those and where those products are. Thank you very much for joining me for episode 51 of the Gluten Free RN podcast. Today we went over a lot of the nutrient-dense foods that are on the list for the Emergency Preparedness with Nutrient-Dense Foods class. But we went into a little bit more depth for some of those about why they're so important. My goal is the Gluten Free RN, and my mission statement is to educate people globally about gluten intolerance and celiac disease, empowering them to improve their health and quality of life with food. I'd like to thank the podcasting group for producing and editing the Gluten Free RN podcast. I'd also like to send a huge shout out to Keith and Kevin, Elizabeth, and everybody else at Pulse Media Network, a fabulous group of nurses that are also podcasters. And just this weekend, the NNBA, which is the National Nurses in Business Association, had their conference in Florida. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend this week because I've been speaking in San Francisco, but that particular group of people are near and dear to my heart. And if you're a nurse and you don't know about the NNBA, I highly recommend that you investigate that. Thanks to everyone for joining me, Nadine Griskoyak, the Gluten Free RN, for episode 51 of the Gluten Free RN podcast. I look forward to the next episode and wrapping up this first year of the Gluten Free RN podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you've really enjoyed the Gluten Free RN podcast, please go over to iTunes and leave a rating and a review. It really helps other people find the Gluten Free RN podcast and benefit from this information. Until the next episode, I'm Nadine Griskoyak, signing out. Bye.